So, hello everybody. Today is another booktube video coming to you from me. It's been a while since I did the last one, and those of you who look at my channel have noticed that I've been posting other videos. It's not that I've switched from reading to playing card games, especially Magic the Gathering and Lorcana. It's just I have been reading, but I don't actually talk about every single book that I read. I just want to talk about the books that really matter to me, where I'm like, yes, this book is so special that I would like to talk about it, because there is no point in me saying, oh, I read this book and I didn't really like it, or I DNF'd it, because when you do that, you always just talk about your own feelings and your own impressions, which are very subjective. And I think that if somebody manages to get a book published, this in and of itself, even in this day and age, is such a big thing that me not liking a book and talking about it would just basically detract from this person's success. It's like I don't talk about the kind of music that I don't like. I talk about the kind of music that I do like. So today I'm going to talk about this book. It's called Rules for Vanishing by Kate Alice Marshall. Now, I'm a bit unsure about the publication status of this book, because it was published by Penguin Books, but it's really hard to come by. And I don't know if it's just this particular version of it and if it's going to be republished, because it's not that old. But getting this book has been really difficult. I ordered this book in March and I didn't get it until 2 months later, which is highly unusual. But then I got it twice. So I don't know what the story is with this book, but I do know what the story is with the author, because I already reviewed her book, These Fleeting Shadows, and I really absolutely loved it. Now, Kate Alice Marshall apparently writes young adult fiction. And again, just a disclaimer, I don't get this whole young adult, middle grade, whatever, because this book, I would say, is not written for young people. It is written for people of, let's say, 13 and older, up to 13 and to 130, because it is a horror novel. There's also no two ways about phrasing this nicely. It's a horrific novel about horrible things happening to people. It has body horror in it. It has mental problems, possession, demonic entities. It's got all of that. And I loved it. I think it's a great piece of literature. It is not like These Fleeting Shadows, which is a good thing, because it means that Miss Marshall can write various types of books and write them equally well. And the only thing it has in common with this other book is that you have a female protagonist. You do have a lot of diversity. You also have LGBTQ plus themes in here. And she basically does that in a very kind of like, inclusive way. So it's just mentioned. So, but again, it's all about representation. It's the story of, is it the story of Sarah? I'll read to you what it says on the back. Once a year, a road appears in the forest. At the end of it, the ghost of Lucy Gallows beckons to travellers to play her game. If you win, you escape with your life. But if you lose... Sarah's sister Becca disappeared 1 year ago, searching for the ghost of Lucy Gallows. In the sleepy town of Briar Glen, Lucy's road is nothing more than a local law. But Sarah knows it's real, and Becca is trapped on it. So this is a little bit like your typical urban myth. There is this story of this girl that went into the woods. There is this road that leads to the old Briar Glen village that burnt down a couple of decades ago, maybe in the 19th century, and now we're in the 21st century. So, and essentially there is a road, and this girl got lost on this road. And if you want to get to her. You can do this, but you have to do it on a certain day with a partner. You can't go alone. It's very important that there's always two of you, or an even number if there's more of you. And you need keys because there will be gates that you have to walk through. And Becca and Sarah are adopted sisters. And one day, Becca and her new boyfriend decide to go down that road, and they vanish. And they never come back. They're lost without a trace. And a year later, we start the book with Sarah's high school friends and herself getting a text message from somewhere saying, well, you can play the game. It's just a couple of nights away. If you want to find Becca, blah, 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 blah. Bring keys and bring a partner. And people are basically saying, well, is it Sarah who sent it? Because Sarah, since her sister's disappearance, has kind of withdrawn from everybody. She's not really talking to people anymore, and so on and so forth. So people are speculating that maybe she did it. Some say she does it because she craves the attention, and some people say it's a cry for help. But anyway, a couple of her old circle of friends, the Wildcats, assemble, and they decide to go down to the woods with Sarah and try to find Becca, because Sarah is very convincing. She says, the road is real, we just need keys. If we go through the gates and if we follow the road, we will find my sister. And they do. And from there, things get really terrible. People die in very horrible ways. People vanish, reappear. And the way it is described and the way the book is written is reminiscent of these fleeting shadows. Because if you go and listen to that video, if you've read the book, you will know that the protagonist that's telling the story is an unreliable narrator. We find out over the course of the book why she is so unreliable. The same is true here, in that we do get several chapters from Sarah's perspective talking about I and me and in the present tense. But the book itself is written in a very layered fashion, which reminded me a little bit of Dead 11, because in Dead 11, which I also reviewed, and which this book also reminds me of, you have excerpts from, I want to say that there is excerpts from websites, there is definitely chat protocols and things like that. So basically logs of people using chat, WhatsApp, SMS, whatever they were using, emails and so on. And the same is true of this book. You have copies of chats between people from their phones. You've got video evidence that has been transcribed. You've got interviews that have been transcribed, because Sarah has returned from this trip onto the road. So has, as we find out as we go along, Becca. So apparently she's found her. So has Mel, who is one of Sarah's friends, and also a boy named Kyle. But we only find out about this as the story goes along. So in the beginning, there is 10, and then there were none, you know. So I think in the beginning there is 8, and then there is fewer and fewer and fewer people. But they find Becca. They also find Lucy Gallows, or so they think. And obviously things are not as they seem. And when they finally return, it turns out that Lucy Gallows, while she does exist on the road, isn't the girl that they brought back. They brought back an entity called Dahut, who was a woman a long, long time ago, who decided to let in a great evil into the world, but she was found out, and so the people in the city where she lived decided it was better to flood the city and kill everyone inside than letting Dahut open the gates to this entity. And now she's trying to do it again. And she's taken possession of, we believe, Sarah. We believe Becca. We don't know. But that's essentially the story. And it does remind me of these fleeting shadows, basically because of this idea of the unreliable narrator. Somebody is possessed. Somebody is not who they think they are. They are slowly discovering who they really are. Everybody else is discovering what's going on, and they're trying to resolve it. It reminds me of Dead 11 in that it's about an evil entity that does exist. It doesn't resolve as, it's all in your head, or there is a normal explanation for this, but it stays completely supernatural, just like Dead 11. And also from the way it's structured, it reminds me of Dead 11. And it also reminds me of my best friend's Exorcism, which I also reviewed, which is also a brilliant book, in that you have this group of friends who work together in, my best friend's Exorcism. At least none of them die. In this book they do, and they really do. They vanish, they die, things happen to them, they don't return. But it's this friendship and love will not conquer all, but they can conquer some. And also there is going to be an exorcism in the book towards the end, which is partly successful. And it does have a semi-good ending in that things do look up. But it's also true that they've all suffered terrible wounds from which there is no coming back. So somebody described this as a mixture of X-Files meets, what did they say? Did they actually say it? X-Files meets, no, I read it, I think, on one of the, here it says, the X-Files meets the Blair Witch Project. In a way, yes, because there is found footage. So I see where this is coming from. But I think it actually describes the story really well, because there's also a Dr. Ashford and Abigail, his assistant, who are kind of like a Mulder and Scully team, one might think, but over the course of the story you also learn that there's more to them. And there's also a second book called Our Last Echoes, which also seems to be set in this same universe with Ashford and possibly Abigail. And I've ordered this and I hope that I'm going to get it soon. So basically, what I will tell you is, if you enjoy horror stories, if you liked My Best Friend's Exorcism, if you liked Dead 11, if you liked These Fleeting Shadows, this is a must buy. And I can only recommend it. I'm always surprised at Kate Alice Marshall's ideas, because they are all unique. When I say this book reminds me of another book, that doesn't mean that I think she read them, because I don't even know when they came out or if this one is older. I'm not saying that at all, but it's just that there are themes which they explore, which I think are worth exploring, and she's exploring them as well. But it's done in a unique way, in that I can say, if you liked these books, then you will probably like this, without saying this is a copy of those books or they copied from each other. It's a recommendation. It says for ages 12 and up. I'm not sure if a 12-year-old is the right audience for this, unless they are super mature. I would say handle with care, because there is quite a lot of body horror in here as well, and a lot of loss and grief to deal with. But it's a super book and I really recommend it. Talk to you soon. Bye.